Welcome back to The Street on BNN Bloomberg, and thank you so much for being here with us to talk about some of the tax implications of the results of the federal election. We are joined by Ali Spinner. Ali Spinner is tax partner at Crowe Soberman, and just by way of disclosure, I am a client of Crowe Soberman. They do my personal taxes for me. Ali, thank you for coming in.
So happy to be here.
You and some of your comments, you, like Bill Robson, say that a minority government poses questions, and your realm of expertise is taxes. What does it mean to tax regulations and legislation?
Absolutely. It does pose questions. Part of the challenge is that with a minority government, the government is going to need help or approval from some other party members to have items passed. And what this means is when they want to have certain tax changes put into the plan, they can't necessarily do it unless others agree. It's hard to know what's going to be.
One of the big topics was the capital gains increase to the levy on capital gains. Just remind us where that is right now.
So that is not a thing right now, which is great news. Will it become a thing? Not sure. Just by way of reminder, back in the budget last year, the Liberals proposed the potential increase to the capital gains rate change. It actually did get passed, but they never managed to get it into law. It never got passed into law. I should say it passed at the budget stage, didn't get into law. What then happened is that it got pulled back effectively. It never happened. It wasn't a thing. It's not law now. And in fact, the Liberals were campaigning on the fact that they wouldn't bring it back. It was not going to happen.
And you refer to that whole thing as a fiasco. And indeed, I'm sure you dealt with clients who made transactions because they wanted to get in ahead of the increase in the capital gains tax exemption.
Yes, absolutely. Back last year in April, May, and up to the end of June, for taxpayers who were otherwise going to be selling assets with gains in the next little while, maybe the next couple of years, they absolutely pulled the trigger and sold assets or undertook transactions to make sure that they could benefit from the prior reduced capital gains, or I should say regular capital gains at 50% taxable. The reason it's a fiasco is that it didn't come into play. It left a lot of people with a lot of confusion. And in fact, we're feeling it right now in tax filing season, which of course...
I'm sure you are. Yeah. I know Bill Robson wants to ask you a question as well.
Well, I first of all, I want to say that the CRA is due for a lot of criticism, but in this particular instance, the convention is, if it's announced in the budget, they implement it. And I wonder if the minority government prefigures more of the kind of tax policy making on the fly that we have seen, where it seems like the communication teams dream stuff up. They don't even ask the CRA or other experts to comment on it. They just plunge ahead because it sounds good and on X or whatever. Is that what we have to look forward to now?
I really, really hope not. If I've learned anything in the last year, it's that I'm not going to make predictions of what's to come, because the only thing I'm certain of is even when things are certain, they're not so certain. It's possible. It's possible. It's scary to think that way, but I understand why you're saying that for sure.
What tax-specific promises did the Liberal platform contain that we might expect the government now to move forward on?
Well, one interesting item is that they did indicate that they were going to reduce the lowest marginal rate of tax federally by 1 percentage point, which is seen as a good thing. It would reduce the amount of tax that Canadians pay. The one interesting piece, though, that tax professionals like myself are asking is, what will this actually mean for tax credits? It's one thing to reduce that tax rate and then reduce the amount of tax we pay, but our tax credit system is also based off the lowest federal marginal tax rate. Mm-hmm. So if we're reducing tax, but we're also reducing the potential for credits, I'm not sure how much savings will be there for the average Canadian.
Were there significant proposals for higher-end earners, people at the higher end of the income spectrum?
No, not from the Liberals per se. Not from the Liberals. Again, we'll have to see what happens with the fact that we have a minority government.
Well, I wonder how you're feeling about the larger impact of some of these changes. What disturbs me, just to sort of prefigure the concern, is we seem to be hooked on fiscal goodies. There's going to be this for one little group, or a GST holiday. Growth-oriented, significant reductions in the marginal tax rates that some of the higher earners pay. Don't seem to be seeing any of that.
No, I absolutely agree with you. I absolutely agree with you. We have seen a lot of garden variety adjustments that will benefit certain smaller classes of people. There isn't something that I think is widespread and would benefit all.
Tax reform. You want to see, and many tax professionals want to see, a simplified tax system here in Canada. Is there any prospect of that?
I think that there is. Many tax professionals have been calling for tax reform and a simplification to the tax system. I'm hopeful that there would be. I think that ultimately we have a fairly straightforward tax system, but I still find it's very difficult and expensive to comply with our system.
Bill?
Well, I agree that we need some reforms. The ongoing erosion of tax bases with special doodles, what's going on with the GST, it keeps getting poked full of more and more holes. To me, that suggests that, yes, we could simplify the system, we could have broader bases and lower rates. The trouble is to try and make that happen now. I don't like to sort of hand the ball over to someone else at this point, but it might be best if the government were to create a commission and then maybe it delivers at a time when the political climate's a little more conducive to delivering something sensible. I don't know how you feel about that.
Yeah, that's a very fair point. That's a very fair point. We'll see where it goes.
Does a minority government, in your mind, make that less likely?
Oh, absolutely, would make it less likely.
Bill?
Yeah, it's harder to do. When you look at the platforms, again, somewhat as similar to what I said with deficits, it's clear they're calculating. This is the communications team is putting this together. It's not really economically driven. This is going to sell. Deficits don't seem to be an issue for people. So on the tax side as well, that's what the goodies are all about. It's about, it sounds great to have a higher TFSA limit if you invest in Canadian companies. How are we policing that? You know, what are you allowed to own? So I do worry that a lot of this stuff is driven, as I say, by what you can put in the shop window, and the coherence of the tax system, including on the corporate side, is suffering as a result. So I wouldn't mind seeing the conversation started, but there is no way in the first budget we're going to get from the new government that we'll see that kind of movement. So it's still a project for the future.
Ali, thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Remind us when we need to get our taxes in, by the way.
Oh, that's the million-dollar question. Most people have a tax deadline of tomorrow, April 30th. One thing that's very interesting is that if you are an impacted tax filer, we're not exactly sure what impacted means, but generally, if you reported a capital gain in 2024, there appears to be an automatic extension to June 2nd, 2025. So if you have a capital gain, you might be able to delay until June 2nd, 2025.
Ali, great insight as always. Thank you so much for coming in.
Thank you for having me.
Ali Spinner is a tax partner at Crowe Soberman.